I just feel like that music with
Banjo and Kazooie.
I just feel like that music with Ghost Rider just hurts my brain. It doesn't make
like
sense.
Copyright? Isn't that like a risky copyright thing?
No,
The
it's
music?
all good. Royalty free.
Yeah, it's royalty free.
That's not Banjo and Kazooie.
No.
Holy shit, that is a ripoff of Banjo.
It should be. Is that Kevin McLeod, Taylor? Is that who?
Oh
it is?
yeah,
He's a big Banjo fan.
What a way to start out a Saw podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our very special review. I guess I am the Mark Hoffman fanboy, the big bad booty daddy, Trash Snail. I'm joined by
the Adam Hartcaster, Dylan Musk. I forgot his name was Mark. I forgot that was his first name, unless that isn't accurate.
Yeah. No, it is, yeah.
I am It's a Trap, Taylor Field.
If you haven't guessed by our nickname or the title of the podcast, we are finally reviewing, I guess not a month later, but 2.5 weeks later, Spiral from the Book of Saw. If you didn't know, we're massive Saw fans. We did a Saw retrospective before. I put those back to the main feed because I always say it's like one of our go-to things at GeekVerse. It's just like one of our first retros bought us, but we didn't get it in Canada because at the time, I guess some people got it if they have drive-through, but where we were, didn't have drive-through stuff like that, or drive-in, not drive through. But luckily June 1st it came out on VOD, so here we are, we're completing the saga. Who knows if there's gonna be more, but finally we got to see this film. Taylor, before we get in this quickly, where can they find us?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find us with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse space podcast, or sorry, GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerse
space
cast is our Twitter. GeekVerse podcast is our Facebook. So many links. Just Google us and you will find links going everywhere. We're on so many places. It's great. Yeah.
Places we didn't even agree to be on. We just have many times found,
we're probably missing a lot of money actually from that. We should check those guys.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, we could be retired by now. Tons of stuff. Like Taylor just pimped out the Twitter and Facebook. Go there because we got tons of things happening. Loki's coming up, E3, bunch of movies. So that's the best place. Right now, it's all pimping out the June 5th charity stream. But I think after that, we're going to have a pin post with our entire schedule for the month because we got lots of stuff coming. But like I said, June 5th, that's the most important thing. Charity stream for the Palestine Children Relief Fund. We're trying to raise $500. We're 20% of the way there. We got 14-hour stream. Go to a couple casts go. All the details are there, but also on Facebook and Twitter. We have the whole thread of the events, the matches, the after nines. I haven't actually checked the poll tail lately. Do you know what movie is winning the commentary?
Sky High.
By how much?
Sky High.
I think it was like by one vote so far.
Okay, so you could get to vote till Saturday morning on that, and you get to pick the order of the games that Taylor and Kirklin are playing. Mortal Kombat is a strong first, but second...
Is that what that vote was for? Is for the order? Oh, yep. I thought it was just like, what are you most excited for?
No, the fans are deciding, so it's the unbiased way. They're deciding what you guys are playing.
Did the fans decide that Mortal Kombat is a sports game as well? Or,
No, it was a last minute. It was originally Rocket League, but then we had to change some things up, and at first we were operating on the base of like, we weren't going to be in person, and then once the restrictions came, like, okay, we could play these in person. So we just the cheat way is that Kirklin and Taylor both bought the game, so we said, fuck it, it's some people consider it, so it's a cheat for this time. But yeah, check that out. It's gonna be lots of fun. After 9, good stuff. So today, Phil, I'm going to start with you. As always, to do a non-spoilers review. If you've not seen the movie, because I guess, not every market has it, you can listen to this and see what we thought of it, and then we'll do an ad break, and we'll get right into spoilers. But today, Phil, what did you think of Spiral from the Book of Saw?
So a part of me wasn't prepared for it. And I know I was telling you this because I came right off of doing shoutouts to the Harry Potter retrospective we have on Patreon.
It's all done now. Every episode is there.
It's all done, yeah. So we just did Deathly Hallows Part 2, and I went right into this Book of Saw, and I was not prepared for it because right off the hop, I was like, oh my God, I got to get back into like this mindset for this kind of thing. And but to be honest, that being said, like I quite enjoyed it. I felt like parts accelerated and were a little fast paced, and parts where it was reaching a climax especially was very fast paced, and it had very similar things to the other Saw movies and the way things all come together and coincide, which I thought was cool. Again, accelerated, but still glad that they did it because that's like such a signature Saw kind of thing at this point. But it overall, I think I quite enjoyed it, and I hope that they use this as a foundation to continue building more of a universe, I guess you could say, and progressing forward with this, because I think that it's a great foundation that I know you were saying like a reboot. I see it more as kind of like a sequel, refreshing kind of spin-off, I guess.
It's in the Force Awakens territory to me where like, yeah, it's a sequel, but it's meant to re-kick the franchise of like, yeah, you've seen the other ones and you know what's happening, but it's like, I think you still could watch this without any knowledge of the other ones. It helps for like a little nostalgia and a little like, I think there's tons of Easter eggs in this movie, which is a cool thing that you wouldn't get, but I think you could watch it alone. Same thing as Force Awakens, like that's a bit harder, but like you could watch it alone. So, but there's definitely there's a sequel because Clay, our patron, asked us, he said like, oh, what do I need to watch? And I told him the first 3, in my opinion. Like, you definitely gotta watch number 1, but I said like, I feel like the first 3, like, yes, I love Hoffman, but those are like the real, like, people all refer back to that's like the Kramer era. So, but it could be just a sequel. It's up to the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm. That's all I got for non-spoilers.
I will ask you one, so obviously you recommend it. So I was going to say you like this better. I just have to shout it back to Jigsaw, your first ever negative review. Can you at least tease the fans? Is this a positive review?
3.9 he gave it. I thought it was a 4. He gave it a 3.9. That was really fun to go back and listen to.
So without spoiling your score, is it at least a pass? This film?
Oh, it's definitely a pass.
There you go. So stick around in the end and let's see what Taylor got to. Dylan Muss. Funny enough, your lady got to see this before you. Not the biggest glowing review, but what did you feel as a Saw fan? You've been through them all. We've ranked them. We've been on quite the journey. What did you feel about Spiral from the Book of Saw?
Yeah, it's funny when I watched WandaVision with her earlier this year, and that was the first Marvel MCU thing she's ever seen, and now she's starting out with Saw with this one. It's like she just kind of skips, years and years worth of content played up to this point. Yeah, so Saw occupies a very strange and like tightly packed area of my mind because it's crazy to think that Jigsaw was 4 years ago now. Like that feels like a year or two ago, but no, it was so long ago. But leading up to that, I had seen the first movie like maybe a year before we did that retro, and then every movie in like a month and a half, probably a long time frame before going into Jigsaw. And I watched them a lot. Like for most of them, I watched the movies like more than once before our episode because there's all these things that are revealed at the end. So I wanted to see it again, knowing everything. So it was just like this really small condensed amount of time where I was watching nothing but Saw, talking all about Saw, and then I've not watched a single one of them since. So it was like this fever dream of like this weird alternate reality.
Did it happen? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's weird. And the thing is, like on the podcast, Saw will come up every once in a while. Obviously, Jigsaw notoriously Taylor's first failing grade and stuff like that. But other than that, like in pop culture and my other friends and whatnot, Saw never ever comes up, not once. It's just not a topic anymore. I think maybe in the mid 2000s people would talk about it more, but now it's just like feels like such an old thing, relic of the past. So yeah, I don't think about Saw that much, and I don't rewatch the movies. So it was, I feel like Taylor, how he said like, well, I didn't really have any anticipation. I wasn't like ready for this. It just like kind of happened, and that felt the same too. Where like this movie, it came out a couple weeks ago, but like couldn't really get it online. It was like playing at a drive-in, but yeah, and not watching anything leading up to it. I feel like it just kind of came out of nowhere. So my thoughts on the movie, I literally finished it 15 minutes ago. I think unfortunately I just feel very little for it. I think it seems like a very, I'm not going to say safe movie, but it feels very generic. I almost feel like some of the Saw is very gritty and very dark and very low budget and feels like a fan-made thing in some ways. This does not have that feeling. It's much more like Hollywood cop detective movie. So it definitely doesn't have that grittiness to it. And I think it's just, I think another thing too is the other movies have just a bunch of actors that I haven't seen in anything else. So it kind of was interesting that across 7 or 8 movies that I just didn't know any of these actors from anything. Like maybe a couple who I'd seen in maybe one thing, or there's that one like Flea or something was in one of them or some shit like that, right? Some random guy. And this one has, Sam Jackson and Chris Rock in big roles, and then other like semi-big actors. So I think that takes away a bit of the element of it as well. But yeah, I don't think I liked it very much. I don't think I'll rewatch this one. If it is truly a reboot and they do more of these, then obviously it could be a thing retroactively where a lot of the stuff in here becomes really interesting because it's given more importance later, which happens a lot in the other Saw movies.
Yeah.
But as of here, it doesn't. It is in the same universe, and you see, you see a couple of the characters that you've known before, just like in pictures, but it really feels like a disconnected thing. And I mean, the story has that way too. It seems like it was this thing that happened, whatever, 15 years ago that people are thinking back on. I don't know. I wish I had more to say, but I feel like it was just not really that interesting. I don't think there's really much to rewatch for, and I don't know. I just feel like nothing inside, and that really sucks to say. I was hoping that it would have some fun kickers for. I would consider myself a pretty big fan of the Saw movies, even though it was recently that I became interested in them.
So I was gonna say, because you said they're bigger actors, how did you feel about Chris Rock? Because I feel like you've only seen him probably in comedic stuff, right? So how do you feel he did as kind of being a bit more on the dramatic side? Obviously, it's a Saw film, so you're gonna have to flex that muscle, as they say.
Yeah, acting is fine. Like he's good in that kind of role, and he does like it starts out he's being like more of a funny guy. It seemed like very generic, or I shouldn't say generic, but regular Chris Rock sort of thing. But then it kind of ventured into something a bit, maybe with a bit more complexity, but not really. I think it was fine. I think it just changes the vibe of the film, and like this movie is like so much brighter, and like even just like the quality of the cameras that they use to film it are like so much better that it just has a completely different feel to it, has a completely different smell, and yeah, so it feels very disconnected. And I think having Chris Rock or Sam Jackson is really only part of that, but there's many other reasons why.
Yeah. So yeah, I if you listen to the Saw retrospective again that re-released, or you've been with us for a while, like I very much dislike Jigsaw. Thinking back on it, I'm pretty sure it won worst film for Golden Geeks as well. I wouldn't be surprised. Like that, sounds like it rings a bell in my head because I know we saw it, Jessica saw it. So
is that a pun? Tobin Bell, nice.
Yeah. Oh man, the great Tobin Bell. So I actually do really like this movie. I don't think it reinvents the wheel. I think it's kind of like Taylor, where it's like they do hit on a lot of tropes, but I also think it's tough when this is the 9th Saw film and it's like, okay, what do we do? Like even traps wise, which I'll get into, I think there was some really creative traps. I think there were some traps that were just very, I don't know, paint by numbers. I think some of the ideas of the traps were really good, but I think the way they shot them or the way they paced them weren't that well done. But this movie actually wasn't really about the traps, which I like the pace of it. It's much more of like a political movie. I like that. It's about a movie like a sign of the times, tackling like police brutality and, police versus the public and law and stuff like that. So I like all that stuff. And there's this other stuff, again, the spoilers, that I really enjoyed, the fact of I think everything that Jigsaw did, I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Like, this is not how you approach I saw kind of I don't know, they were like that was definitely their first crack at it, right? Because that was Jigsaw, it wasn't Saw. That was them trying to be like, oh, this is a reboot. But then once you watch Jigsaw, you're like, it's not really a reboot, it's just another sequel. Where I feel like this is a reboot, and I think that comes with good things and bad things. I don't mind the main people being bigger stars. I think you're definitely right as far as like it feels bigger, it looks cleaner, which I guess I don't love as far as like a Saw fan, but I don't mind if it's like this is its own type of franchise thing. I did like the detective stuff. It's stuff we've seen before. I think it was a nice runtime. It's like hour and a half. Like I think it's under that with the credits, so I think it doesn't overstay its welcome. I agree with Taylor that like the ending feels very rushed, and I guess that's the thing for me. I think I like the movie overall. I think it's somewhere in my top 4 for the Saws, but I think it gets less good as the film goes on. Like I think it starts strong and then it just kind of goes down from there. And I don't know if this is a Saw thing or I think this is more a writing thing. I think there's a few things that are just very predictable, especially maybe one of your bigger reveals. I feel like, okay, we'll talk about, but I feel like from the second I met certain plot point, it's like, well, I think I figured this out. And that happened. And again, maybe that's just because it's the 9th Saw, where it's like, okay, I know what's going to happen. I know all this keywords in here. When they said head, that means someone's head's going to be in a it's just like, it's not too mysterious anymore, but I still like it as far as, like I said, this is kind of what I wanted Jigsaw to be. So I do want more of this universe. I'd like to see more because I always think they have creative ways. I think there's definitely improvements, but yeah, overall I really liked it. I think if you're a Saw fan, you'll enjoy it. If you're not, I think if you're not a Saw fan, I don't think you'll enjoy this. I don't think it's actually as brutal as some of the other movies. There's definitely some traps that are really grotesque, but I think I think it's just the way it's shot. There's less like the traps go on less, but there's some brutal ones. So I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about it when we get into traps. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. That I really enjoyed it. Nothing earth shattering. Nothing like this is one of the best Saws, but I did really. I quite enjoyed it, so I'm happy. I have another Saw because Jigsaw I will skip. I've only watched it one other time. I watched in preparation for this, but I think I could skip that now and jump right to this. But unfortunately,
you had 8 movies to choose from, and you watched Jigsaw in preparation for this.
No, I watched them all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. I did the whole because I had not seen Jigsaw since we did our review. Actually, like it had been that long. Usually, I still get surprised. Well, yeah, but Jigsaw because I hate it so much. But at the end of the day, like he's not in it much. But I still go. There's a few Tobin Bell scenes, so you know what? I'll give him a shout out. So anything else we want to shout out non-spoilers before we start talking about traps, the new Jigsaw, Chris Rock, Sam Jackson, Hot Wax.
I guess I didn't say if I'd recommend it.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think I would pay for this movie if I were anyone. Like, if you're a Saw, I feel like as a Saw fan, like this movie could, like, the story could have been that there were people who like saw the Saw movies and they thought that there was like a copycat that was based off people seeing the movies. Like, it's so distant from the other Saw films that it doesn't actually feel like any of those things are real in this world, like they're mentioned, but it could just be like, oh yeah, we saw those movies. So I don't know. I think I could recommend. I mean, if you're a Saw fan, you're gonna watch it, of course. But for anyone else, I don't know. Wait for it to hit Netflix or something. Watch it there, and maybe it's a fun like Friday night popcorn flick. But I can't really give it much more praise than that. But yeah.
If you ever get to them in your life, the Nightmare on Elm Street series eventually does that. There's a movie called New Nightmare, and Freddy Krueger goes after the actors this time, and it's like this, and they get the same actors from all the original, and even like the directors in there, and like the guy who plays Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund, is in the movie as Robert Englund, and then there's Freddy Krueger as a separate entity as well too.
I like that.
Yeah, it was really fun, but it bombed at the box office because in the 90s, people were not ready for that fourth. They didn't get it. I don't think.
That's too smart for the 90s. Yeah,
it was too smart. So we are going to take our first ad break right now, and then we're going to talk about all the spoilers. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Hello, spoilers. I'd like to play a game. So here's the thing, like, because you brought up down like, oh, how it feels so distant, and I think I do like that because I think I was a broken record saying that's what I did want with Jigsaw. I wanted just full on because we had got so many apprentices and so many like, here we goes, like there's a new person. Unless they came to me and said, hey, Dr. Gordon's going to be the main Jigsaw guy, which I still kind of hoped. I had like a fingers crossed. I didn't think it was going to happen. I did like the idea of, okay, this is separate. It's just someone that was inspired by John Kramer. I always wanted that, so that's why I like it. And where I'm getting to is the voice. I like that they made a choice and they changed it up, but I don't like the voice as it is. Like I want to play a game. Like it's just like this, like this computer, like whatever that was called when you would type into a computer and would speak back at you, and it's kind of lacking personality and everything like that. But I respect that they change. I think that's what I do respect, that they changed things up. Like they did that. They didn't have Billy the puppet, like they had their own puppet. I love that the pigs are not just pigs for the sake of pigs. Like it has something to do with the story as far as like, people refer to cops as pigs. So it's like that kind of fun full circle. Instead of John Kramer, like that's one thing they explain all these things in the Saw movies. We never got to explain why he used pigs like as like a mascot or something like that. But I like in this movie that the pigs make sense. It ties it to John Kramer's like gimmick, but it's also to do with like who Charlie or who, I can't remember his real name, who he is targeting and everything like that. So
yeah, go ahead, Taylor. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I wanted to like pinpoint a thing. Travis is so sure that Sam Jackson was the killer, and I going into this movie, I couldn't get out of my mind thinking.
Before it came out.
Okay. Yeah, so going in this movie, I was just thinking like, well, Travis is usually right, so I guess he's the killer, and so at least I was pleasantly surprised because I felt like I was spoiled. But because it was shaping up like he was the killer.
Well, I just thought that because with Jigsaw underperforming and they're giving Saw one more run, I thought, okay, the new Jigsaw has to be a big actor. I feel like it has to be somebody that when it ends in the sequel period and be like, I want to see Sam Jackson be Jigsaw. I thought that until we met the actual Jigsaw. And I get like we can start there as far as like that big twist, but like can someone pull the IMDb and tell me what the character's name is? Because like I can't
Will?
remember what's his name?
Will? Like
Is it Will? Yeah.
William Schenk.
William Schenk. Yeah, they call him Schenk, right? So yeah, so Will, I like I said, the second we meet him, the first thing he does, like he's the rookie, classic storyline, and then he looks up at the wall and he sees a picture of Sam Jackson. He's like, "Your dad's the reason I want to do this." And right there, I was like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "You know what? Maybe there's a chance." And then the next time we see him in a scene, it's with that dead body. It's like, "Are you kidding? I've wanted to be here since I was 12." I was like, "Oh well, here we go." And I think they like really overplayed their hand with him for myself at least. So I'm glad, Taylor, for you didn't see it coming. But for me, the second we met Will, I was like, okay, I hope not. Like, not that I hope not, but just like I hope that they wouldn't write it as so clear this is the guy. But what about you, Dylan? Did you see that one coming, or where were you on the path of who the new Jigsaw is?
Yeah, it definitely I didn't pick up on it until the reveal, so it wasn't as
That's
obvious to me as it was to you. I think I just have a lot of issues with like how like the logistics of it and whether or not it makes sense. I guess we could talk about that, but I wanted to go back quickly to you're saying that they went a different direction with it, and you respect them for that, and I like am inclined to agree. Like I think you're right when you're this many movies in. And it's so messy, and some of these movies are total dog shit. Like, it makes sense to go a different direction, especially when you're bringing in some bigger talent, at least in the name of actors that people maybe have more expectations for. And so I like that I think that's the path to go, is to just take it a new direction, loosely in that world, but just do your own thing. But I think, you just got to really stick the landing if you're going to do that. And for me, the concept of just like cops are bad, and that's like the whole movie is just like that one idea. There's like no nuance to it, and I don't know. It just seemed very like juvenile to me. It didn't really strike me in like a surprising way. It seemed like it was just very one note, which like cops are bad, and that's it. And then that's kind of like the whole theme, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, it's tough because like I think, and because if you go back, Chris Rock's the one that pitched this, and I imagine he had pitched this probably around the time some like maybe Black Lives Matter stuff and everything was going on. So I think I'm kind of with you as far as I like the idea of it. The execution is very kind of all right. It's there. It is topical, but at the same point, like I think there's some line in the movie. Someone says like, "Oh, Jigsaw never went after cops," and it's like, if you watch the Saw franchise, like, yeah, he did. He went after cops all the time. And that's thing where it's like, it's relevant, but it's not actually necessarily new. Like his second, like Amanda's first test subject is Eric Matthews. Why? Because he's a dirty cop, like that. Like they've done this before. This is just like, instead of that one idea, it's the whole movie. I think where I was fine with that. I think I was disappointed that they kind of, in my opinion, did the thing that I hate in Saw when they make a lot of the traps or the new Jigsaw. Like, no matter what, this person's going to die. Like, he feels more like an executioner than like that. Because he's talking of, so you track it, right? We meet Will. And same thing. I hate this is a movie thing that they do. This is the other thing how I knew when they show the witness get shot, he's clearly a Hispanic actor. And then when it was with Will, I'm like, oh, of course, that's going to be his son. And I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they would have a mixed race or something like that, because I just feel like that was another like, okay, it's movies like, oh,
or
well,
just shroud it. Like, you don't need to show that guy's face.
Well, yeah, it's like, to me, it's just like lame movie world where it's like, well, he's a Hispanic actor, so we got to make sure his dad's a Hispanic actor. It's like, no, he can be anything in the world. But that was not till. But anyway, so like, okay, so he's a kid. He sees his dad get shot wrongfully. He creates this whole life because he said he had to make a fake persona. He had to get in the police, which I feel like would be very difficult. But I feel like if there's a part 2, that's the good thing they have. As far as John Kramer, we didn't know much about him. That's the good thing about Will, is we know his origin, but we still don't know. I think you could get a lot of mileage out of, okay, how did he do this? How did he get all these things? I don't know how he has like we talked about this with Jigsaw in later movies, but his traps are so big in this. Like Will, like he has a lot going on. His traps are just like mega huge. But like getting to my last point is his ideas. I like the shot. He's talking to Chris Rock and he's like, John Kramer had it right. It's a spiral, like it's evolution. And he's talking about changing a person, but he's like, why change one person when you can change the system? But his method is not like, I'm going to put these cops in traps to teach them a lesson. It's almost like I'm gonna put these cops in traps to scare other cops. You know, like some of them had a way to survive, but like Samuel L. Jackson definitely did not have a way to survive that trap. Like no matter what, he was going to get gunned down by those SWAT guys. You know, like that. So that was my kind of disappointment near the end. I was like, okay, he's getting more in the route of, oh, I just want to maybe kill people, and it's like, because at one point Chris Rock even sets him up. He's like, oh, you want to kill cops? He's like, no, and I'm like, oh, he's going to explain the method. And he's like, just bad cops. I went, oh, well, that's not really the thing of I like about Saw. You know?
Yeah, I feel like there's like when the twist happened. Where it's like where it reveals him, I just had like so many questions that seemed to be unanswered. Like, well, one, he was, they set it up that he was like in a trap and he was skinned, but like, did they never identify him or try to? Did they never see his face? Like, was that skin removed?
It was, yeah.
It was like an old white dude. So I don't know. It felt like, did they never go? Did they just leave it? They're like, oh, it must have been him. It had like one tattoo, so it's got to be him. And then they just leave it, and then like. No one went to tell his wife, who doesn't exist, and they find out, oh, he doesn't have a wife. That must be an issue.
So I've watched this twice. I was looking for it because today I watched it again, and in the middle I was telling them, and I'm like, wait a second, how does this work? Because he does have a wife, and early in the film, they for Boz, they're like, oh, we got to call his wife. They make such a big deal. So when they find when they find Will, right away that cop gets attacked on the street, and then right after that, Angie goes missing. So and then after that, he gets kidnapped. So I think the reason that doesn't happen is because that event of him getting skinned and to the end of the movie is all in a 1 day time frame. It legitimately is 1 day. So that's how they skirt past the like no ID, not talking to his family, because Chris Rock does say like, give me his wife's identification, and then he gets a call being like, you got to get here right now. Yeah. So it's supposed to be in 1 day. Is that messy? Yeah, a little bit, but that's the way they explain it. It's like, okay, this all happened in 24 hours.
Fair.
Yeah.
I also felt just like the timing of him like getting on the force and like relocated this team like the day that he killed the one guy to get it all started. It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense at all. And then also like, why does he need Zeke's help? Why does it matter if Zeke's on board? If he's in the force, he can just like, he already knows who the bad guys are. Right, he already did all these killings without him anyway. So why does he need his help? Like, why does he go through this like really convoluted plan? Who the good guy is gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna help you kill all these people. Like, obviously he's already kind of twisted in the head, but if he's in the force and he has access to these files, and he already found 4 people who he thought were bad enough to die, why does he need Zeke's help? That doesn't make any sense.
You're not wrong. I actually didn't think about that one because I was like, okay, yeah, like, because it would be different if, okay, what you do is midway through the movie, Will gets caught and he's on the run, and it's like, well, my gig is blown up, so I can't be Jigsaw anymore.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need someone with access. But then, like you said, at this point, like, I don't even like. So I'm gonna ask your thoughts here in a second to that. But why did he need to? I know why. But why did he need to fake his own death? The only reason he did is because the people who wrote this movie didn't want you to think it was Will, right? They want you to think he's dead, so he's off the game. Like, we've seen this in every Saw movie, right? Tobin Bell's on the ground. Amanda's in a trap. Jigsaw's in a trap. Fucking, what was that guy's name in Jigsaw? Oh, man.
Dude, I have no idea. No idea what anyone's name is.
He's so forgettable, the guy.
For the dead.
Yeah, I speak for the dead. Oh, man.
I listened to our review. I was about to say, I listened to our review today. And I already, we mentioned it many times. I
didn't even think about that. My daughter shares the same name.
I actually was thinking about that on the review. I was like,
I will clarify. I named her after Wolverine, James Howlett, not Jigsaw. Yeah. But like, so all these killers have this thing of putting themselves in a trap, right? So again, that's a Saw trope of, Jigsaw killer appears to be dead or in a trap, but it's just like, it's actually not necessary for him to do this. It's not necessary for him to reveal himself. So I honestly, until you brought that up, did not even think about that. I was just like, okay, yeah, he needs this guy. But yeah, we've been talking a lot about Will. What did you feel about, obviously, like you said, it took you by surprise. Now that is the guy, is that something that intrigues you, or are you kind of maybe with us where you're a little mixed on it? How were you on Will being our 5th Jigsaw, as we've had Tobin Bell, we've had Amanda, we've had Hoffman, we've had Dr. Gordon. Oh no, this is our 6th one. We had Logan, and this is our 6th. This is our 6th Jigsaw in the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I definitely got on board with his origin story and such. I think it's interesting how he chose to use Jigsaw's methods as like an advocation for or justification for what he's trying to accomplish. But it definitely was the fact that he was using it as a method to put fear into cops in the future, not so much punish the cops of current time, like or at least the ones in this precinct. It was definitely to create the awareness that, okay, if you step out of line in the future, I'm coming for you. Be on the lookout.
Bad Santa.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I didn't have many cons with him. I totally thought he was dead. And the reason that worked for me was because the first kill was the full torture scene, punishment, everything. Then the second kill, they halved that. So it showed like him getting caught and killed. And then they followed up afterwards. And then when it got to the third kill, which was him, they just showed it just him as dead. So they set it up very well. And that's what fooled me, because I thought they were accelerating it in the process instead of being repetitive. So I really
like that. Yeah, that second one I really like, because we've never seen that in Saw, where it's like, here's the trap, and then we're going to come back to it 20 minutes later. It is a little like, well, we know this guy's dead when we find it, but I thought it was a fun device of like, you get in this trap and then cut to black. And it's like, oh, this is different, because we're so used to guy wakes up, girl wakes up, we get 15 minutes of them torturing themselves. And it was, I did really like that choice of kind of staggering the runtime of these kills.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you were down for Will. You like Will? You like the origin?
I was down for it. He was definitely a step in the right direction from Jigsaw. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, as far as I speak for the dad, he the guy that messed up John Kramer's cancer scans. I think that was the thing too. Jigsaw was like, they forced the connection so much. It's like, I'm so happy to just have some random dude who was like watching the news, and that's where I think you could have fun with a sequel of this. Is like, okay, when did Will, and you'll do flashbacks, but when did he discover Jigsaw? Like, I don't think he even said, I think he insinuates like he never met John Kramer, but like, how did he, get that idea? I would love to see like things of him, like looking up all the stuff about John Kramer, stuff like that, like being like an obsessive fan or just like following his work. So I think that could be fun. And then, like I said, if they ever want
that prequel film.
No, I think you could just the same way with Saw 2, we got flashbacks of Jigsaw, right? Of like how he got here, the cancer. Where in Saw 1, it was just he's a guy on the floor. That's all you know about him. So I think you could do the same. And I think if they ever want their Avengers moment, you do have like you could have like Dr. Gordon in the wings being like, hey, like there's a new Jigsaw and it's not me. Like you could get there. Will they? Probably not, but like you could if you ever want to. But how do you feel about what we were talking about? Like, why do you feel his motivations of to fake his own death when there's no heat on him or anything, and like the whole like recruiting Green Goblin style of Chris Rock? Like, how did that work for you now that Dylan brought up that point?
Personally, I think I think how he was like recruited and how his relationship was with Chris Rock, I liked it. I liked their dynamic. And I think him killing him or faking his death, I think that was too, because he set up such an intricate backstory, and I feel like that was to try and form a connection with Chris Rock, and then him faking his death, I think, was to compromise him. It wasn't necessarily to clear his name. I think it was to mentally affect Chris Rock's character and make him a little bit more rash in his decision making and such, because it totally just screws Chris Rock over when he finds out, I feel like, and it totally messes up his thought process of having to save this guy who he formerly kicked off the force to having to go and save his dad. Like it totally screws up his mind. So
yeah,
so then what do you go ahead, Dylan.
I was just gonna say that, as you mentioned, like pretty much like the finale of this movie happens like really fast, where there's like a bunch of things going on. And I think that's a good point to bring up of like, yes, there is so much going on, but I think that you make a solid point that he really got in his head with that particular idea. And maybe that's why, because I think like at first it seems a bit weird that some guy gets like cut up in the street, and then like 5 seconds later, he's like in the basement, and like, oh, good thing Angie went in the basement at that exact time.
No, she was told to go down there. Samuel Jackson texted her with the phone, but it wasn't Sam Jackson. He just said, meet me in the cold case.
Yeah, but it all feels like, wow, that had to be like pretty iron sight precision. And I don't know, I think part of it makes like a little more sense when you have that in mind, that this kill, like he could have, like if he had killed Angie there as the first one, that would have gotten his head just as much, I think. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that was one way to do it and justify why he wasn't there. Yeah, I don't know.
I think for me the end, like I know we're starting with the end, but sometimes that's what we do here. It was so Russian. That's what I hate, because even on the second time, I hate that Chris Rock, he gets through that trap with the glass guy. Like, so we'll talk about all these traps for sure, but he walks up and Will's just like sitting at a table. Like, there's not like a big grandiose reveal of like your Jigsaw. It's just like, hey dude, like, yeah, it's me. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that's always such a big moment, the Jigsaw reveal. And it's just like, he's just standing there like, I'm the guy. And I guess for me, because I saw it coming, it was like, well, I knew already. And then he's just standing there. And I just feel like the ending, that's what I hate. It's like the ending feels super sloppy of even when, okay, we get to the room, like he's doing the whole, you gotta trust me thing. And I liked the actor enough, but it does like, and there's no shot against him, but it's just like, he's no Tobin Bell. Like Tobin Bell, anytime we've even said in the bad movies when he was on screen, it's like, oh, he was fun to watch. Where this guy was like, okay, like I didn't dislike him like Logan, but I was like, I would definitely need to see more, but I wasn't like right away like, man, this guy is chewing the scenery, like he's really cool. Like I was just like, okay, he's Jigsaw, let's do this. But they get in the room with Sam Jackson, and the final game is like, you got to shoot me or you got to shoot the target, and it just felt very strange as far as like, I don't know, like I felt the choice was really easy of shoot the target and then just like what he does end up doing, just go jump on him after. It wasn't like, I wish they found some way to make it like, if you don't shoot me, like I'm gone, like you can't get me. But it's like, no, if you don't shoot me, I'm just standing right beside you. And it's just like, it was strange.
But that was part of the trick, right? I mean, he anticipated that, okay, if he shoots the target, lets his dad fall down, and then he charges at Jigsaw or the new Jigsaw, that's all part of the plan, right? It sets him up because the trap was set to kill the dad. Like, if he wasn't angry and mentally all heated up and he decided to unhinge his dad from everything, then it would have been okay. But Jigsaw knew.
But this is the thing I hate, and this is where usually the old Saw movies would do this, where like, remember Jeff? Everyone remember Jeff from Saw 3? What happens was at the end, they do the same thing, right? Jigsaw, Lynn gets shot by Amanda. He says, I can have an ambulance here in 5 minutes. All you got to do is forgive me for all the pain I've given you tonight. Jeff doesn't know if he kills Jigsaw, that explosive collar is going to go off. So it's that moment of he killed Jigsaw, but he killed Lynn like accidentally. Sam Jackson, no matter what, was going to die. I wish they found a way to rework that Chris Rock made a choice selfishly to go after this Jigsaw guy or do something, and that made Sam Jackson get gunned down, because then you'd feel that effect where this feels like a cheat of like, hey, save your dad or get me. But he did choose to save his dad, but then his dad dies anyway. So that's where
I disagree. I don't think he was for sure to die.
Okay, so if Chris Rock, how does he save Sam Jackson in this scenario when the SWAT, who are not going to hear him through this metal door, is cutting down the door?
Because we saw, because if the only reason they reacted to Sam Jackson was because he pulled up that like gun in his hand and all that stuff, because it was puppeteered, right?
Yeah.
But Chris Rock immediately, like when they're coming in, he surrenders and does this, and they don't shoot him. So if he disengages his dad from the whole trap and is sitting there, hands up and everything, and Sam Jackson isn't rising up with his guns drawn, then it totally would have been fine.
Looking like a human Transformers. Here's my only counter to those, because we don't know this. Because I watched again, he starts to move like whatever they would be, like what is the term? Not a catheter, but what are in their arms, like the IV, I guess, that was dripping all the blood out. He starts to remove those, but the other things that lift him up are big shackles. So I can't agree with you 100%. That, like, could he have taken those off, or are those always locked up? Like, I guess we won't know.
It would have taken some time.
But that's the thing, like, would it take enough time? And then my last point before I throw back to you guys is like, so Chris Rock goes and tackles him. They have this really badly shot fight scene. Like, it looked really bad. Like, I don't know why. For the whole movie looking pretty good, it was like, okay, they're kind of rolling around. But I hate, the SWAT comes in, they cut the tripwire, Sam Jackson's get raised, and I liked the callback earlier if they were showing the puppet throughout the whole movie with the guns. So I say, okay, that's kind of fun. The lights go out, so you can't see what Sam Jackson's doing, but they have Chris Rock run out of that elevator like Taylor said, and he goes, no, and he says, don't fire, and he puts his arms up, and then Sam Jackson's there. I wish that they made the second that tripwire happened, that like the door closed and Jigsaw got away. The fact that everything's happening, and that door's still opening, and the new Jigsaw has time to go, shh, and then hit a button, and then the door goes down. In real life, if you watch videos, those SWAT guys would have been all over that guy in that fucking elevator. They would have kneecapped. Like, there's no, and especially because, like, I watched it again a second time. It's not like he hides. Literally, Chris Rock throws him down, and he's right by Chris Rock, so they would have seen the Jigsaw guy. So I hate that the Saw, like, they just conveniently, like, ignore the new Jigsaw, whose new catchphrase is shh, which is fine, because I did think about it, and I was like, well, if he's never met John Kramer, technically no one alive would know that you said game over, because all the people that have heard game over are dead. It's better than I speak for the dead, but I guess we're going with shh. Okay, that's fine. But I hated that he, like, how he got away. The whole ending felt way too convenient and rushed with like a bow tie on it for me to really enjoy it, where Saw endings are usually like such a highlight, you know?
I think it was pretty sloppy. I think I'm somewhere between both of you guys on this, because I think there was a way for him to get his dad out of the trap. It seemed like it to me. It just seemed like such a flimsy trap compared to some of the other things we've seen, like the rack, where it's just like this rusty old metal. There's no way you're getting out of that stuff. But yeah, it seemed like he could have just ripped him down or something like that. And like, even when that moment happens, when he gets puppeteered to raise his hand, like if Zeke was right there, he could have just like pushed that aside, and then they wouldn't have shot at him, right? Like, because it wasn't as if it was like on a, I don't know, like on a little dial that was moving up. Like, it was just kind of swinging around. And then but I also agree that I think the part with the elevator closing, and it just like him being there for so long. Yeah. And then like Zeke was right there, but then he like just, that part seemed really weird to me as well. And you would think like the first things Zeke would say is like, oh, get that guy, or like, don't let him leave. And I mean, it's a pretty big building, so maybe he could make his way out, but it seemed weird how long he stayed there for. So it didn't, I don't know. It definitely seemed sloppy and rushed, as you mentioned. And then like, dude, the credits are like, right. Like there is no come down. It is just credits right then and there. I was like, well, I guess I'm about to cast in 2 minutes. Like, what the fuck? It was so quick.
Yeah, right into like a big rap song or something like that. And I know we'll talk about, but anything big specifically, talk about Will or new Jigsaw that we haven't talked about. Like I said, I know it might come up, but anything pressing about him as far as, it's good for that actor. I hope he gets a sequel and he gets to maybe expand on it a bit more, because all of them except for Logan and Jigsaw got, to expand on them. So, give him a shot, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, I think he has enough charisma, and like I'm intrigued enough with the character. He definitely has a lot of flawed reasoning, but so did original Jigsaw. He was the most flawed character. Like that's what we talked about, his descent into like, what the fuck are your rules anymore, man? And he went after a guy who smoked in Saw 6.
And I feel smoked. Yeah, exactly. I feel like Will's are like, what did Angie do exactly? She like was she was good pals.
She covered up cops, right?
She was crooked.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. That's clearly not equivalent to like this guy who just shot this guy in his car for no reason. So I don't know. I already, and like this guy lied on the stand a bunch of times. That's equivalent to, but that's not really the point. And it doesn't need to be consistent in that way. I think it's a bit lazy that two of them just like shot people for no reason. Like maybe they could have come up with one more reason for how bad cop could be bad, but I don't know. I think I'm intrigued enough with the character that if they do another one, like I'm down to see more of his reasoning and his descent. And obviously, like if he's gonna do this thing in the first place, he's pretty fucked up in the head, and so it makes sense that a lot of the reasoning and logic and whatnot is flawed anyway. But I think the acting is good as well. Not like it's pretty good in this movie overall. Like there's really only one guy to me that stood out as like, oof, but everyone else, compared to the other Saw movies, the guy who was at the AA meeting and then he like was in the glass trap, Pete. Oh my God, Pete! Like some of the eye things he does, we're just like, dude, what the fuck?
See, mine, I don't disagree with you. He was the greatest. Mine was the other. So there was like Angie, Chris Rock, and then there was the white older dude who was around for the whole movie. He was always like, "You're too close to the Zeke. You're not. You don't see it clear." He was bad as well. He was like, "Man, we didn't have enough budget. Like we really had to pay Sam Jackson." Who I would like to know how long Sam Jackson shot for this movie, because I knew he wasn't in it that much, but man, he's really not in this movie. Like he has like 4 scenes. He has like, and I guess that's maybe a con. I wish that they had a bit like maybe one more scene with him and Chris Rock, because I like the whole like strained father thing. But we only got the one. We got a flashback. We got him in the basement, and then we got him as the puppet. Like that was an easy couple days for Sam Jackson.
What else? I don't know. What else would you have like wanted for? I feel like there was enough backstory. Like I feel like it showed that they had a very complicated relationship. But there's a lot of love there still. The fact that they planned to have dinner even after they like had this huge fight and Sam Jackson was being a total dick. But then it was like tough love. So I thought like there was enough. I mean obviously they could have done more, I guess. But I don't know what I would have. I don't know what other character relationship stuff I needed from them.
I think I actually would have liked to see them do that dinner over the case, because I think it would have been good to see them like talking about one. You could have thrown a bit more like Jigsaw lore again, because like you said, it's very light. Like we only have that one meeting where it's like, oh, that's John Kramer. Hey, and they always do that in the fucking movie. They're always like, so that's John Kramer. It's just like, yeah, like the name's right there. I would think because I always say this like the real life, if we had a person like we know who Ted Bundy is, if we currently had a guy who went on like a 3-year span of putting people in saws, we would all know who, especially if you're a cop, you would know who John Kramer is. And every movie they're just like, oh, that's him. And then like even at one point, Chris Rock is like, yeah, I sent out word to the feds just to keep eyes. And it's just like, I always love in this movie, they try to propose like he might still be alive. And it's like, no, he died like 6 movies ago. Like I always hate that. Like even Jigsaw, it's like, this is John Kramer doing, like it could be John Kramer, which I like. They didn't do that really. It was just one line where he said he's looking into it, but like John Kramer's ashes somewhere. But I do have a question about Will. I'm going to ask that after this ad break. So if we get a sequel, would it just be more, because with Jigsaw, he had a wide range of, I guess I'll say John Kramer, he had a wide range of victims he could go to. With this, is it just, again, he's always after cops? Like that's the one thing where I think they maybe paint themselves into a corner. As far as like Jigsaw is like, he went after healthcare, he went after druggies, he went after cops, he even went after multiple people. But I think if they do get another one, that could end up feeling repetitive if like he's after us cops again. You know, it seems like that's his only motivation is I'm going to take out the cops or clean up the cops, you know?
Yeah, I think it could be just a descent into madness. Like, I mean, here's the thing, right? If he had the setup where he was a cop and he could have got all this info, but then he threw that away by fake killing himself and doing all this. And then Zeke was like his plan to be accomplice, and that got thrown out the window when he killed his dad.
Backfired.
Yeah, like he's lost his sources for how he finds out who the bad cops are anyway. And I mean, yeah, you could have 1,000 other people who could fill that role. But judge. I don't know. I could easily see it just being like a descent into madness, and maybe he like has the reverse Jigsaw where he realizes, oh, there's other people that deserve this too, or changes his beat or something like that. But maybe I think you're right. I mean, they did paint them like if they just stick with this thing, the bad cop bad thing. I already wore its welcome on me on this one movie in an hour and a half. So I don't know how much more mileage they would get out of that with it feeling I don't know, interesting. I think it will just get pretty boring pretty fast.
Yeah, like I think the second one, like I said, my pitch is I think it will, because they kept Zeke alive. We purposely didn't meet his kids, so I think you got some stuff to do there. So I bet you this Jigsaw, like, oh god, I don't think you'd put a kid in a trap. I just mean like he might threaten it, but like I think you would see the sequel, it'd be about Zeke trying to track down Will and get into his origin, maybe meet his mom, like all the way he got him there. But Taylor, what would you feel like? Would they keep on this cop route, or what in your mind is like, okay, if we get Spiral 2, where do they go from here?
Well, I mean, I definitely think that, yeah, the cop route it's a one and done kind of thing. They can't obviously keep doing that. But that being said, I definitely wasn't opposed to it in this film, because I feel like, okay, this guy's got a general foundation for why he hates cops. I mean, he literally witnessed this guy kill his father, and he was supposed to be one of the good guys. So I definitely can see how that lasts. The descent into madness pitch, though, that you mentioned, Dylan, I think is definitely a plausible, credible thing, because I think if you look at previous Saw characters, they drift away from adhering to Jigsaw's original code, right?
Even Jigsaw.
So, yeah. So I think that when it comes to characters and their codes, I think that they drift kind of sideways from that. So I think it easily wouldn't be hard to just say, yeah, you know, this guy Will's just coming to terms with, yeah, the cops are not the only bad guys. Like there's so much more worse characters out
There's
there.
more
that I
bad
gotta
people
kill.
out there than cops.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's definitely within reach for them to do that route.
So Taylor, I'm gonna let you lead off with this one. What did you think about the traps in this one? We had the very first one with the tongue on the train.
Yeah,
one.
that
train,
was
another
the
pain
one.
The pain
Ooh.
train, yeah. We had the fingers one. We had the I cannot wait to talk about the one that Angie had, and then we had the glass one. And we talked about Sam Jack, so that's obviously there. But what was your favorite out of the new traps, Taylor?
My favorite, I'm gonna like favorite in terms of like, well, in brutality and goriness, I'd probably go with the hot wax one because it's like
Yes.
you're getting wax on your face and you got to like sever your spinal cord. Like, holy fuck.
When the tape
that's
was
horrible.
like, and to get out of this, you have to sever your spinal cord. When I saw the first time, I was like, Jesus Christ. That was just the level I was not expecting after all these movies. I was like, are you like you have to sever your spinal cord?
And
Are you
he
kidding
shit talks
me?
her too. He's like, you will live, or you won't walk away, but you will live. Like, oh my God.
He was brutal.
Oh,
And the
that's so
fact that it was
brutal.
hot. The fact that it was hot wax too, like I think we talked about this Mads on After 9 because she was talking about this and I tried to infer without spoilers, but like it couldn't have just been hot water. He had to double down and be like, it's gonna be fucking wax. It was like this trap, like see, like even if you do sever your spinal cord, your face, you're gonna be messed up and you probably won't survive anyways. That's why I thought at least with water, be like, okay, this would definitely burn her quite a bit, but I feel like you could find like it's more realistic. But like at this point, when the wax is like forming around her head, it's like this might be like up there with the rack as one of the worst traps ever as far as pain level.
It's brutal, and it's not one of those ones where, okay, if we look at what Angie did, okay, I don't think she's nearly as bad as the rest of them. Yes, we only see so much, but still, it's like she was like everyone else was being a total dick to Zeke and not following him at all when he was assigned the leader of the case, whatever that's called. She was like kind of helping him out, and I feel like even in his short time, like Will's short time with her, you could see that okay, she's actually like a good person, and maybe she made some mistakes, but I feel like to put her in this brutal trap that yes is survivable, but it seems like the surviving option is just the worst out of all of them, because all of them like you could technically survive. It's going to be bad, but you could survive. Hers, even if you do survive, it has like the worst repercussion if you make it out of it alive. So
Yeah.
I feel like she didn't deserve that, man. Come on.
Like you can't walk and you're looking like Two-Face from the Dark Knight, like
Yeah.
that. Like you're getting a bad because the other ones is like Pete's. Like again, that felt like an execution because that was another problem I have because Chris Rock tries to
That one
save
has
Pete.
so many issues. That one has
Yeah.
so many
He
issues.
tries to save him, and even in their conversation, Will's like, "Yeah, I didn't want you to do that." So it's like he literally said, "Like, yeah, I just wanted Pete to die." It's like again, that's not really the Jigsaw code way, but this is the new 2021 Jigsaw, and it's just like, but that one, yeah, it was weird. I loved the callback of like, hey, he was chained, and you guys probably might not pick up on this, but they literally started to play the bathroom score. Like the score has a specific music, and they started to play that. Okay, yeah, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like that's really cool. I like throughout the whole movie it was like the pig, but at one point with Angie's trap it was the OG like tape recorder, and it's like, okay, this I liked those elements, but the glass one, yeah, that one just felt like I felt like it wasn't shot right, and just the way like I don't know the schematics of this machine, so maybe it was pushing it at a very high velocity, but that has to be very high for this glass to be stabbing Chris Rock and this guy.
Dude, and the thing is, he could have just climbed up there and like knocked the bottles off, or like put something there, and then the bottles wouldn't go into the machine. Or conveniently, all of the glass is getting shot out of this cannon that's like at nipple height. He was holding a giant garbage can. He could have just blocked.
Yeah.
He could have just blocked the thing that was shooting the glass out. And I know that like a lot of times the traps, maybe there's like ways they could have gone out or things they could have done in the moment. But I feel like he lacked any sort of critical thinking that he's like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide behind this wall. And then like every 30 seconds, I'll get my chance to try for 2 seconds before it shoots again. It's like, you could have just blocked it with the garbage can and that would have solved everything. That one felt to me like it was too easy to break, and I don't know why he did not think correctly in that situation.
He
And
didn't
I
want Pete
know
to
he's
survive.
under a
He
lot of
didn't-
stress, but like, come on, man. There was so many solutions to that one.
What about you, Taylor, in the glass trap?
I'm just wondering how long Chris Rock spent trying to saw that handcuff off, because he wasted so much time. He could have used that time to save.
Yeah, there was like a time skip, right? So it's like
Oh,
it
there
seems
was
like he was-
multiple time skips.
Well, and I think technically the glass trap didn't start until he hit play on the tape. I think that's what happened. You know how these Saw things work. It's like one thing triggers another thing. So I think technically if he would have never hit the tape, Pete would probably still be alive. But of course he hit the tape, and that's sort of like, I liked it as a shout out, but it actually did make no sense that he was like handcuffed and then like right by his foot was like the lockpick. It's like, I appreciate the fan service, but it's like, as Jigsaw, like, why did he do this? Like, I guess so he wouldn't wake up right away and come find him, but it's like you want him to find you. I don't know. It's like, but I appreciate the shout out, so that's fine. We had the one we told earlier, like the cutaway trap of the thing. Either you're gonna get electrocuted or you gotta lose all your little digits. And I really liked that one for the most part. I think the ending had some weird cinematography. Like, it's almost like they didn't have budget to show the electricity, so they shot it weird way. But again, I think we've talked about this before and saw, I like traps that are simple, like the one where it is sever your spinal cord, the glass. Okay, this is a little too much, especially the one we didn't talk about. But Angie's trap is literally in the basement of the precinct. I know in all these movies we got to suspend our disbelief, but that one for me was like, this is too much. Even if you work there, it's like, there's no, in my opinion, there's no way you could get all this shit into the precinct, hot wax, like, yeah, like that's another reason why I wish it was just water, because like, okay, I could find like, but no, he just has this canister of hot wax, so I didn't like that. But I liked the finger trap as far as very simple, like, hey, you gotta rip your fingers off or you're gonna die from execution. Great, easy, simple. I like that. It's we kind of, I don't know what my finger getting ripped off.
Easy, simple, yeah.
Well, no, but I just like that the approach of it is very easy to do. Like, you just got to bite down this thing.
I like that it's a bit of a subversion of the expectation too, because when you first see it, you think he's just gonna get drowned eventually, like the water's gonna rise up high enough that's what's gonna kill him. But then it kind of zooms out, and he sits up, and it's like, oh, that wouldn't drown him anymore, and then finds out that there's two more layers to it with the fingers and the electricity. So I thought that was good as well, and I agree. I liked that it cut away. It just felt like something a bit different. At first I was like, man, I want to see this trap. Like, come on, let me see. And it's like, well, of course it's going to come back. But yeah, I thought that one was fine. And even he kind of had like the reverse bear trap thing going on his head.
Yes.
So I don't know if that was intentionally a shout out. I'm sure it kind of was. It's a pretty easy one, but I liked that callback.
Yeah, and I did like how they spliced that scene when we talk about ended, but then I like that they find his body at the place where they set up, because if you didn't watch, you're just here for spoilers. That guy, Pete, Dylan's favorite, Pete, he shoots the witness because they're all dirty cops, right? So he shoots the witness, plants a gun. So what happens is Chris Rock rats on him, even though he's doing the right thing. That guy goes to jail for 9 years, but all the cops in the precinct hate him because they feel like I said, he was a rat. So at one point, Chris Rock was calling for backup, and this guy, I can't remember the finger trap guy's name, but anyways, he didn't respond. He didn't go back up because he was just like, yeah, F this guy, whatever. Chris Rock gets shot. And I like the setup of, like, you see Sam Jackson, too, who we met at first was like, oh, he's a hard-nosed dad. He is, but he was like caring about his son. He was really mad at all these people that didn't help him. So I liked the backstory of, like, they found his body where this all happened. Like, classic Saw thing where it's like going back to your roots, right? Like, at one point they put a trap where Sam Jackson and Chris Rock had like there's a picture, and right away they start questioning Sam Jackson or Chris Rock, being like, hey, like, we found the body where you guys went as children. Like, I like when they do that in Saw and detective movies, they tie it all together. So I actually liked that segment of like a flashback, learning some character stuff. Like the trap was done in a different way. Like I said, it's a different type of way, because you know the result of this trap. He doesn't make it out. Literally, they find his body, so okay. But I liked that. And then I guess we're doing final with the last one, but we started with one that I thought was, again, it's simple, but it's not. I like you're standing on a chair, your tongue's placed in the trap, you just got to rip it off. I like the whole thing that, okay, he was a shitty guy because he would always lie. Fair enough. But the fact that, like, you got to rip it off or this train's going to impale you, that's where it was like, oh man, this is Saw in 2021. Like, we're going big. But again, I like that trap because it is just, he had to rip his tongue off. And he had the worst because what happened is he stepped off, ripped his tongue off, and then got hit by the train. He should have just fucking stepped off or got hit by the train. He chose to do both of them. What do you do? Like, these people that decide they're going to finish the trap like right before it's over. No, at that point, you just accept death, you know? So this guy, Boz, was not too smart.
Box. I like that.
Boz.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add on that one. I like the detail that when they show up, they're like, well, what's the TV doing in the subway station? Like, I feel like a lot of movies would just kind of forget about that detail, but I like that there was just like a smashed TV on the ground because obviously he just left the TV there.
And then they think it's a homeless person. And then Chris Rock, well, no, homeless person be wearing a Fitbit, you know?
Yeah. Classic Fitbit.
Taylor, what did you think about the tongue trap? Lots of shots of the tongue, like right. I
didn't appreciate that.
I liked it, you know, looking that, and like I felt like I don't know. I know tongues are big, but when they had that tongue in the box, I was like, man, this guy had a massive tongue. Like that was a big one, you know.
Thick.
Well, I mean, when you think of a tongue usually goes all the way back down, right, like to the seam. So it's quite a big piece of human hardware.
Human hardware. All right, Jigsaw number 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was the scene that just wrote me in because I was coming off of Harry Potter. I'm like, holy shit, we're in this.
You filthy muggle.
But yeah, no, again, I can't comment on his actions because like you're in excruciating amount of pain, so you're not gonna think clearly, and like. I feel bad for the train driver, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a tough
That's
day at
who you
work.
feel bad for.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, like Jigsaw said, Dylan, he lied in the stand many times. He broke an oath
significantly more than anyone else. Yeah,
he might as well be smoking.
He might as well be shooting innocent people in the street.
Well, I did not like that scene you're referring to, and he's like, "Yeah, I looked up Boz's record. Like he lied a lot. Like." Way more than it was. It's like, how do they have that on track? Like, how do they have that on record? Like, I guess they do, but it's like, then why the fuck was this guy?
Yeah, they're like, how corrupt are each of our cops? This guy's a 10, this guy's an 8, this guy's a 3.9. Like,
they had a baseball card system of like Bosley number 9 on the bad scale.
He's got GTA 5 stars. He's
Pete, he has 5 stars about flashing because he shot that guy. Oh man, and then like
Angie also a 5 because she worked at the precinct. So.
And out of all the ones that even Angie's, I bought more. All of them I bought more of like, okay, they're a stretch. The one I did not like, again, I can't remember his name, but Finger Trap Guy. They go, oh yeah, you shot. The reason he's taking his fingers is because like you shot an innocent man. So I don't want you ever to pull the trigger again. And they show us the footage and what like. I don't care if the whole station's corrupt. This would be the time where you sit down and be like, we can't have this guy in the fucking squad. What happens is he pulled someone over and he asked the guy, he said, let me see your hands. And the guy sticks his hands out the window, gives him the middle fingers. And that means the cop decides he's gonna shoot him point blank and kill him. Are you kidding me? Like, I wish they did something else. Like there was a tussle and he overreacted, or they should have just done like, I felt like they are hinting at some of these cops being racist, but they didn't want to fully go there. It's like they wanted to be political and not too political. Honestly, if you were doing that, they should have just done that. They should have been, hey, this guy's a fucking piece of shit. I would have bought that more than this guy got middle fingered and he's trigger happy, so he shot the guy point blank on camera. That was the thing I didn't like. If you would have heard of these reports, then fine. The fact it was on camera, this cop knew. Even for a shady cop, I feel like they'd be like, yeah, we can't defend this one. Like he didn't do anything to you. He just like, I did not like that reasoning at all. It was really lazy.
Yeah, I think that's what I mentioned of like, it seems like it lacked some nuance in some sense of them like trying to speak that message. I don't know, like that guy was just such a piece of garbage in like every single way. I don't think I have much to add. He deserved that one. He definitely did.
So his partner didn't get killed, did she?
No, she was innocent, I guess. Even though right away she's like, oh, when they found the body, she's like, oh, this is where he shot that kid. She said kid. So like, are we thinking this guy was like 16, 18-year-old and he just fucking gunned him down? And I know police do that, but a lot of times, like we've said before, it's usually race charge, and that's kind of the issue. People bring up like, hey, you know, if this was a white person, would this happen? This was very strange, like, because he, you know, gave him the stone cold stunners and like, okay, the middle fingered him. But yeah, she I guess was innocent, or she'll get her due in the sequel, you know? We started this conversation because I asked you, and we'll go around the room. What was your favorite trap of them all?
Again, like favorite trap in terms of like gruesomeness and like creativity, it would probably be the hot wax one. But like favorite in terms of just like the least like brutalist and goriest, and most easily is like to escape, I'd probably say like the glass one, because I feel like if Chris Rock was thinking properly in that scenario and wasn't compromised like mentally, then I think he could have saved him, because yeah, he could have just slid the garbage can up on and put his body inside that thing and just stood behind it. Like there, like, and it, again, like you said, Dylan, there's so many different ways that could have been avoided and stopped the guy from dying. So
you got a funny way of like saying what your favorite trap is. Either there's the most brutal one or here's the easy one. I go with the fingers one just because I like it. Like I said, the simplicity, but I think the one I will remember the most is the hot wax one, just because it's so brutal. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I think in concept I'd like the glass one, but I think the logistical issues make it hard for me to pick the one. But even just the idea that like this is happening at a recycling plant, I think is cool. That like he's killing this guy using like recycled bottles. I don't know what the message is there, but I think it's saying something.
He's going after that industry next. You don't recycle, get ready to have a
exactly. Trap. Yeah, I saw you put that fucking garbage on the ground, dude. You're done for. I think I have to go with the pool one. Like I said, it subverts the expectation a bit. I think it's at least like somewhat unique, like pulling his arms through that little thing. Like the hot wax one, brutal, but I think it's like somehow vanilla, even though it's clearly not, but it seems like just kind of basic for a Saw thing. The tongue one, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've seen that before, you know, like I feel like they've done things like that before. And I mean, to be fair, like the glass one is kind of like that too. Like I forget exactly what the scenario is, but someone like had a key like behind their eye or something like that.
Yeah,
they like gouged their eye out to like get the key to save someone else. But that wasn't, obviously it was, I don't know if it was supposed to be a play on that, but it was obviously quite different because it wasn't, the key was just in a fucking garbage can.
Or even then it's kind of like Jeff's too, where remember they had that girl that was strung up and she got frozen to death. Like she was in a cold room, they'd spray her and Jeff had to like find a key and like get her out. Very similar to that as well. He's like hanging in the exact situation. So yeah, no, that would be funny. Him going after just litterers and whatnot, or like, oh no, this bin's only for glass, and like you're in like
you really? Just feed the birds. You're done for.
He'd want him as like the neighborhood watch. You'd want him to lead it because nobody would fuck around. Like, oh man, it's Will's month. Like, no one litter. Remember what happened to Jeff? Yeah, he fucked up Jeff. Don't get those kids. Like, oh, were you driving fast in the kid zone? But I think that was one problem I had with the traps, that overall I think it was the shooting of them, or like I said, the pacing of Angie's. The whole time it just looked like it was punishment, because you just would see her neck and then you would see like the hot wax, and to me I didn't get a gauge of like, is it just cutting her or is she actively trying to do this? The tongue one was just a lot of him holding his mouth. The glass one, like I said, I didn't really like the pacing of that either. And then the actual fingers one, he was ripping them and then he stopped and then he went back to it. But I just feel like there's that moment of this, like there's 3 stages of a Saw trap. There's the pitch of like the tape. Here's what's going to happen. There's the struggle, and then there's the ending as far as you get out, or the big, rip or something like that. But I feel like there wasn't much of a struggle in these. It was just like, here's the trap. Okay. And they're going to be punished for 2 minutes, where sometimes I feel like you see people actively like really trying. I think maybe it's because the traps with the tongue and the fingers, like you said, it was like the first bear trap, but all like that one, the hot wax, they're all very close to the person's face, and they're traps that have to do with the head. So there's not much maneuvering you get like you could do with the camera or with the actor. So I think that was one disappointment of like, remember Saw 3 and that guy had all the chains in him, and it was like he's slowly ripping them, and it's like, oh, will he get it? Where this was always, like I said, it was so focused on the upper region. There wasn't much to do. Like the train guy, like what does he do? Like the only thing you can show is like his mouth, like him trying to rip it, but because it's his tongue is in between like the trap, you can't you don't see anything, you know? So
Yeah, I would agree with that. So question on Angie's trap, like was the idea that she breaks her neck and then there like something would detect that and turn it off, or was that she could break her neck and then like slip out because she could move like with greater dexterity because her neck was fucked up?
I thought about that at the same time my second watch. I was like, okay, so how did this machine dictate if it knows her neck's broken now? You know, like, and that's
Yeah,
why it's just like it's just another one of these where it's like, yeah, it's a trap, it's real execution, but like, I maybe it was something like the knife would sense like how far it is down your neck, and that would be
right.
like, well, that's a broken neck, so here we go. But like, I don't know, that feels that must be hard to do, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're missing a step on that one, but
Yeah, I think so. Well,
that happens.
to step out of the room, we'll get into some final thoughts and ratings and everything like that. We'll take one last ad break and then we'll close this out. So, Dylan, is there anything specifically you want to talk about? We talked about some of these bad cops, talk about some main characters' traps. Is there anything that's on your mind as we come to a close on Spiral?
Yeah, so quickly there when the first when the first murder happens in the detective's office, or I guess in the cop shop, they kind of set up their board with all the pictures and the red lines pointing everywhere. And quickly there's probably a lot of Easter eggs if I were to pause it, and I should have done that in hindsight. But Tobin Bell is on there, John Kramer. We also see Obi, right? That was Obi's
Obby.
face.
Yeah,
Obby.
That's my name. Obby.
We had a good time with that name on the rankings episode.
Yeah.
What's
And it's
that?
fitting. I like that because, like, in Saw 2, he is the guy used to kidnap all the people in the house. So it's like, yeah, he'd have some sort of connection. I didn't see no Amanda or Hoffman on those boards, though.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Like, was there other, like, you mentioned some other Easter eggs? We kind of mentioned a couple of them that are callbacks, but what were some other Easter egg things? Because I don't feel like I caught that many.
No, I feel like you showed them as a board. Like I liked, like they had the autopsy and stuff like that. There was the music. I liked the pig as far as back and forth,
Yeah.
as far as like, okay, this is kind of like the pig. Not. I liked the new way of kidnapping people as far as the sheet over the face. I don't know exactly. I guess there's just chloroform, but
doused in chloroform.
I liked the visual of it, of just people's face. They remind me of the Dexter opening credits when he puts his his whatever there. We had some of the music. Oh, I feel like there was one other like bigger one. I'm forgetting. If it comes to me, I would show. But yeah, the board was good. Oh, like I said, I felt like there was one. I didn't write it down. If it comes to me, I'll shout it out. But yeah, there was a few of those. But yeah, they didn't have Amanda or Hoffman on there. So it's like I said before.
Hoffman, what's with this Hoffman eraser? Like the last Jigsaw 2 didn't have any Hoffman action going on. Right?
Like I said, I think it's just because like the most successful were the first three, and people look at that as like the reason people look at that as the trilogy too. It's so funny because the end of this movie, it still says executive producer by James Wan and Lee Whannell.
I saw that, yeah.
They haven't had anything to do with these movies since the third one, but because they created it, they still got a paycheck from every time they're listed. But that's why I think people consider that the trilogy too, is because after Saw 3, they left. Like James Wan directed the first one. I think he wrote the story of the second one, and then Lee Whannell wrote the screenplay for all of them. But then after the 3, they were completely done. So Hoffman wasn't technically a creation of theirs. So that's why. But yeah, I want to pause and see that board one time. I should have this time and see if there's anyone on there. I did see Obi as well. Obby, that's my name.
Obby. I know. I always mess that up. And then I don't know if this is one. It seems like maybe a bit of a stretch, but there's I forget what it is, but they kind of have like the spiral that he's painting around the city. That's supposed to be like, okay, come here and you get your next clue. At one point, there's just a wall that has like a bunch of spirals, and I don't know if that was supposed to be kind of like a callback to that one trap that had the guy in the room with like on a bed of glass essentially, and then there's like numbers all over the wall written in red. That's probably a stretch. I don't know if it was really calling back to that, but there was another kind of glass related trap. I feel like maybe there's a few of those, but maybe that was in some way kind of calling back to that, especially because underneath Pete there was like just a big bowl of glass essentially.
Yeah, and like you said, like I think the head traps, especially that second one, is definitely kind of a callback to a reverse bear trap. And same thing as yours. I think this is a stretch. I don't know if it's the same thing, but talking about Hoffman, there's this moment in Saw 5 where he goes like go into an elevator and it opens up and a dog barks at him and lunges at him. Very similar to what happens to Chris Rock in this movie, where a dog like he just turns the hallway and this dog like lunges at him. Do I think that's on purpose? Probably not, but that is something that happened. And that dog's name was Pee Wee. That happened in Saw 5 because Hoffman goes Pee Wee, and then he walks away. And yeah, I think that could have been one, but who knows?
I opened the movie and just sniped it to exactly the moment when they have the board open. So I'm doing some sleuthing right now and see if there's any other good details on this board.
Well, like I said, I like they got a picture of him and they got the autopsy photo. I love the autopsy, just like full on like a still from the movie, pretty much. But
yeah,
you know, Taylor, we were kind of around now. Is there anything you wanted to shout or talk about before we get into final ratings and stuff like that?
I feel like I had something, but I can't remember it.
Character, a trap, a twist.
Oh, actually, if there was ever a moment where it kind of pulled me out and I thought that, that's kind of odd in terms of the like Will being the new Jigsaw, it was when he called Chris Rock on the phone and the baby was crying in the background, and it was just one of those like basic YouTube royalty free baby like cries, because I was like, that just sounds like so basic, and I can't picture the movie just settling, I mean low budget maybe, settling on such a like low quality basic baby cry like standard like in the industry. And now it makes sense because literally that's what he was doing. He was playing the audio recording over the background. So, yeah.
There's a picture of a girl, and I'm trying. It doesn't really look like Amanda, but I'm trying to see it.
Is her hair at least brown?
It's a black and white shot, so it's hard to tell.
Damn it! That doesn't help.
I'll send you a quick screenshot. I don't think it's her. It's hard. Chris Rock is standing in the way too, so it's not a full shot.
Another noticeable thing that I want to comment on, I think this is where the acceleration of the ending really started to pick up. But when Will offered to Chris Rock, like, I want you to join me, like, be my partner, and immediately Chris Rock's like, yes. Like, I'm like, that's way too quick. Like,
yeah.
I'm in. He literally is like, yeah. Well, he's trying to do that, get his dad right. I don't think he was gonna actually join.
No,
him,
I didn't think so either. But like, any sensible guy would know that Chris Rock is lying, which I mean, he was.
Well, I think that's why he was, but I think that's why he's like, okay, I want to believe you, but you got to be. There's still a test, you know. Like, I think that's why. Like, that's how I did buy that. Oh no, that's
the best photo I can get. Like, it's a very quick shot, but it's the only other face on the board. So
I could be wrong. To me it looks like the girl from Saw 2 who gets her wrist traps in the glass box. She has a very similar mug shot. And she's somebody. Yeah, she's somebody that was tied to like John Kramer's like rehab home or something like that, or remember Jill started the fucking Jill, man. I'm glad she wasn't in this movie somehow. I know Hoffman, but I also go to Saw. I wish Saw Freaks, the Saw boards were around, but let me go to Spiral IMDb and see if there's any trivia up there that I might have missed. We'll see there. Let's see. First film to not be released in October. Yeah, that's a true thing. According to director Darren Lynn Bosman, who he's the guy that he directed 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he directed those ones. So he came back for this. So he kind of got a guy that had some experience. Cool. Yeah. According to the director, a trap containing someone getting their face cut off had to be cut in order to the film to receive an R rating. It was previously getting an NC-17, which you really don't want. If you don't want an R rating, you don't want that.
I've never heard of NC-17. What does that mean? Does it mean it's not allowed to be shown in various places?
Well, sometimes that means, like, you know how, let's say if I want to rate R, I could be like, well, I'm a parent and I think my daughter Gwen would enjoy it. I can make that call. NC-17 is like, no, you got to have an ID right at the door. Like, there's no, even then, like, you can't as a parent say my kid can see this. The theater say, no, they're not allowed if they're not 17. So obviously that's like a big, You don't want that. There's been very few movies that have ran with that. Do you guys remember this? The previous working title was The Organ Donor. You remember
I
that?
do remember that.
when we knew there was a Saw being
Organ
made, but then it was
Donor.
The Organ Donor, and that's what they were filming under. So people were like, "What the fuck?" And they figured it out. So
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes a bit of sense. There's a lot of body parts that are getting removed and sent in boxes. So he's donating the parts, I suppose.
And obviously, like we talked about, but this is the first film to not feature any voice or appearance by Tobin Bell. So, just a big shout. I'm glad they had a photo of him. Big shout out to that guy because he carried this franchise for a long time. And some of those movies were bad. Him and Hoffman, they were doing some good work there. Chris Rock is the second actor to write and star in a Saw film. The first was Lee Winnell, who played Adam, and he's now directed Invisible Man and stuff like that. So he's gone off to do some good stuff. No mention of Lawrence Gordon or Mark Hoffman, significant characters whose fates have been left unexplained. Okay, I want to say something because I saw this on I've transferred to the Saw Reddit now because there's no Saw freaks anymore. I know people are like us with Saw, like Hoffman fans, but everyone being like, man, we got to find out what happened to him. He was chained to the bathroom. The last time we saw someone chained to the bathroom, we didn't get to see what happened to him, was Adam. And the next time we saw him, he was a skeleton. Hoffman's definitely dead. He's locked in that bathroom. He's not getting out of there. I know.
Yeah, I legitimately don't remember. Like that's just one of those details that it's so hard for me to picture the last time I saw Hoffman because I haven't rewatched any of them. So
this is the sixth film in the series to open with a trap. Like, okay, yeah, I feel like that's kind of happened. So, yeah. So there you go. Nothing too juicy as far as that. So, anything else to shout out as we come to an end here?
Nope.
Dylan, any final thoughts on Spiral? Because I'll ask you. I think you've kind of said this, but because you don't really give number ratings. But if you get a Spiral 2, what's your excitement level for that after seeing this?
I think I'd still be excited. I think this is just such a weird niche, like cult following sort of series. It's so fucking weird and wacky, and I feel like if they continue this storyline specifically, like these characters, I feel like you gotta get even more crazy and wacky with it, and I'd be down for that. So I wouldn't say it's like top excitement level, but I would absolutely still watch it as soon as it becomes available, and maybe I'd do some rewatching before that too, so I'm a little bit more in the. Oh, actually, it probably doesn't matter. I'd probably just get my hopes up, like, where's Hoffman? Where's Hoffman?
I think unless they did a preview and it showed like Dr. Gordon's back, like that sort of deal, then you'd be like, okay. But if it is just this universe, like, and I don't think Dr. Gordon would come in these sequels, but I think there's always the movies did that too, where characters wouldn't be around for a bunch of years and then they'd work them in. I think it's tough because that requires them to do more homework. But I still think because also too, I would have thought too, if you were looking into Jigsaw, that's when they would Dr. Gordon, even if Dr. Gordon wasn't the main villain, they'd go interview and be like, hey, he's one of the survivors. Like maybe he has something to do with this, but we don't even know if this is the same city as Jigsaw. They just said it's a Jigsaw copycat. So we got no idea, but Taylor, Phil, we teased it in the non-spoilers. What are you giving this film? What number? What rating is Spiral from the Book of Saw? Which do you think if they make a sequel, would it be Spiral 2 from the Book of Saw, or do you just go Spiral 2, or do you what do you do here?
I think they would go
Spiral from another Book of Saw.
They would go Spiral from the Tomb of Saw, like the tome. When you get like a big book, a tome.
I feel like they were from the Book of Saw with a different word instead of Spiral.
From the Book of Jigsaw?
Because I feel like you need to have Saw in the title.
From the Book of Saw.
From the Book of Hoffman.
That's a whole different book. No one's ready for that book.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm going to give this movie... aside from like the fast accelerated ending, it's not like a major con, but it's enough to take away 2 points for me. I'm gonna give it like an 8 out of 10 because I genuinely really liked how it started this new storyline, this new direction for these Saw movies. I really do hope we get more. Again, like I like what they did. I like how they set up these characters. I like that we have this like young new Jigsaw who's like. He's ready to thrive. He's obviously he's inventive with his traps, and he's got an agenda and a motive, and he's got goals. He's gonna go big. So, I think compared to like Jigsaw, this is a huge step up in the right direction for me. So I'm super happy with where they're going with this, and Yeah, 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, and I do wonder too, like we got the answers in the Saw franchise, so it's not like they were that sexy, but like you did learn that okay, John Kramer was like a very successful like engineer, and then he worked with like lots of charities and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, how does Will have all this money? You know, like how's he throwing, you know, how much hot wax and all these devices? And I'm sure the answer would be boring, he stocks or something, but like still, it's a little fun to like, okay, especially this guy, I feel like would Jigsaw and John Kramer, it was more like everyone found this stuff out about him after, like when he died and things like that. Where this is a guy actively on the run. So it's like, what do you do? But yeah, I think I'm gonna go. I'm lower than 10. I think I'll go with 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10 for me is like a movie that I will watch again. I'll definitely watch this. I liked what they brought to the table. There's some familiarity there. Maybe a few things are like, okay, we've seen this done before and done better. But I think that just the fact that to me it was a cohesive, comparable movie, unlike Jigsaw, which to me was not. Jigsaw was just such a letdown. And like I said, I'm biased because I've always said, oh, do a new story with a guy inspired by Jigsaw. That's exactly what they did. And I think it was a fairly decent story. And I'm not always expecting the greatest story in these movies, but Saw does have a history of having some fun, you know, like having this big continuity, almost like MCU style, like, oh, there's all these characters that connect. And, yeah, I'd like to see more, and it's interesting because a few months ago, during COVID, there was rumors of Saw 10 happening, which that'd be crazy because that's Saw X. But then, like the producers said, like, oh, like there's no plan to end the franchise right now. I think it all depends on money, but I don't even think Dylan, you've heard this rumor. There's also a rumor going around that there's a Saw TV series in the work, which I don't know how that would work. I feel like you'd almost just have to do like an anthology, and I think what you would do is you would bring Tobin Bell back for that, but just his voice. And it would be like, here's all these traps you didn't know about that don't really affect the main continuity. Just, I would love if they did like a 6 to 8 episode show, and it's just like every episode's a different trap. It's like 40, half an hour of like these people trying to figure it out. I don't know, but that's apparently something in the works as a Saw TV show. I don't know how it would work in this world. Like with this Jigsaw they set up of like, I feel like he's not like, now if Chris Rock is alive, he's gonna tell everybody who, like, the world will know who this new Jigsaw is, right? So there's not too much fun to be had there. People will be on the run, but I don't know. I hope Saw's back.
I don't think that would that's not what I want at all. Like, to me, the reason these movies are so interesting and worthwhile for discussion is because of these really creative twists that they come up with, and they don't always nail that by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's probably why I didn't enjoy this one as much, because the twist didn't make me like, oh shit, I gotta rewatch this right now. Whereas a lot of the other ones have had that feeling, and I did. Like, the next day I'd watch the movie again and be like, oh, I want to see it again now, knowing. And so I feel like something like that, obviously that's not like what they pitched as the synopsis, but I feel like, what else do you do? Like, how do you have some really intricate story with these twists if you're doing multiple episodes? I feel like that's exactly what they do, is just like, here's some traps, and that to me is not what Saw is about, even if that's like what it seems like and that's what's marketed and that's like what its persona is. That's not really what it's about. That's not why you're there, in my opinion.
I agree, and I think like the traps is aspect, but the fans love like the characters of continuity. One of the TV shows called Saw: The Escape of Mark Hoffman, and it was all just about his, you know, him getting that out of that bathroom.
I want Hoffman back so bad. Such an underrated character. Also, Travis, just quickly, the lighting you have in your room very much fits the Spiral aesthetic, and
that's why I did it. Yeah,
the red and green there.
Yes,
but like not like red and green like Christmas, but red and green like someone's gonna die. And so good job on getting the lighting there.
Thank you. I did, because in Saw they use red and green. I used the red and green too, because that's always like the switches. Like, it's always just red and green. So I try my best. So thank you for the shout out. Oh, what was I was gonna say? I agree with you too. Like, I guess this is a point I should have brought with the ending, but like with the twist, literally the two twists in this are, you find out who the guy is, which to me is not a big thing. It was done a little poorly. And then it's like, okay, Sam Jackson does get killed. But you look at the twists in the other Saw movies, I think that's where you're right, where the ending is just kind of like, that's all right, because like you got guy on the floor. Or like Amanda's twist is great, that she's in a second test, but no, she's an apprentice. Or like, oh, Mark Hoffman's this cop work, which we've already did a cop Jigsaw. So like, that's Hoffman. It's like, oh, he's there. Or it's like, these movies like 3 and 4 are actually happening at the same time. Like, there's always some big one, but this was just like, okay, this is Jigsaw, and oh, you know, SWAT shot down Sam Jackson. And that's, I think, why the ending's the weakest for me, because you just leave like, all right, that's fine, I guess, but it doesn't have that Saw like, whoa, mind F sort of deal.
Well,
you know,
we didn't even like mention it, but like the twist is that like Sam Jackson was like a bad guy.
Yes.
And it was like his fault that the police force is evil, which I don't know why I didn't bring this up, but like to just lump all of this on him, that he is the reason that the police force is corrupt because of this one guy. Like, that's how they set it up. Like, what the fuck? That's just so, I don't know. It's just so out of the realm of possibility that one guy is responsible for everything. Anyway, it's a tangent, but Sector 8, right? Sector 8.
Oh yeah, Sector 8, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we did it after much anticipation. We had to wait a little longer, but we finally got to jump back in the world of Saw. If you liked the film, if you didn't, whatever you thought, on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you can join our Discord that has us and other listeners in there. Let us know what you thought about this film. Let us know if you want more. I hope we do get more, because I'm a sucker for this franchise. So until the day I die, if they say, oh, we're making another Saw, probably like, you know what? All right, I'm going to check it out. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Until they start getting like straight to VOD, that's when it'll be like, okay, I don't know now. But you know what? I'll still be there watching them. Yeah, I'll be like Taylor, how he keeps sticking with Wrong Turn after like Wrong Turn 7. And they're
yeah, it's an addiction at this point.
Yeah, it's like we're already, whatever in. So thank you very much for tuning in. Game over.
Bye-bye. Speak for the dead.
Really? Back to this? Really?